I'm here I'm delighted to be back again with Dr. Yaoshi, Minister of Education for Ghana. Most of you will remember on Solutions Day, back in the TESS, Transforming Education Summit, which is part of our common agenda, Jeff and the Minister for Education from Greece and Ghana, and we had Ireland, they really put on quite a show, and it was actually quite a viral video. So we're back again, and I was telling him earlier that we're all going back to business, where in the third World OER Congress with UNESCO in Dubai, November 19th and 20, we're all back in action again with our project. So just to say that His Excellency, he's a teacher by training, and I guess the thing that he dreams of is a Ghana, he says this, he dreams of a Ghana where every child, regardless of their background, whether poor or privileged, will be afforded equal opportunity, right? But he's so talented, I think he needs to up his game. And I think all of us are depending on him coming into our partnerships. And let's delete Ghana, and let's insert the world, and let every child globally be a benefit of your dream and your talent.
Thank you so much, and Prof. Sachs, and our distinguished panelists, and everyone here gathered. I'm honored to be here. And coming back to Colombia, we've been here this about the third year that we've come for events like this. Thanks to Prof. Sachs and inviting us to share our opinion and ideas as to what's going on in our education system. I'm not new to America. I did not lose my accent living here for 26 years. So don't make a mistake and think I'm just coming from Ghana. I live here for 26 years in Los Angeles. I was a high school mathematics teacher and then got crazy and decided to join the movement to change education. I became a charter school founder. I founded 3 charter schools, and they're all doing well in South LA. And that is when the current president came to America, heard of me, came to find me, and he asked me a very simple question that changed my life. Would you consider coming back to Ghana to help me change the education system? I responded, and took me back to Ghana after 26 years, literally going back to a country that I did not know much about. I had left the place. But I was determined that we could do some work there. So I sat here through the philosophy class, even if it's at the tail end. Then I began to revise my education philosophy notes from University of Southern California, where I did my PhD, and began to take a look at social reconstructionism, which is how do you use education to transform society. So at the Transforming Education Summit, I was sitting there thinking about, we are transforming education, but for a country like Ghana, education carries a dual burden. You are not just there transforming individuals, but you have to position education to transform your country. Very different from the movement that we fought for in America. Here I knew if I could educate the children well and counsel them well, they will be able to fit into society and do some big things for themselves. But in Ghana, I'm thinking, if I do not position education well, my country will never be out of poverty. So that dual burden then creates a sense of urgency where you take a look at your education system and you are not talking about reform, you are talking about transformation, which then takes you to a place when you have to look at access. How do I open the floodgates of education to all and for all? And that quest then have to begin to take you to a place where you have to be more audacious. My government was more audacious when it came to secondary education. After 60 years of independence in Ghana, majority of the children ended their education at the junior high. High school was not free. Then come a president who says, I'll make it free. In a country where 70% of high school students are in boarding schools, when you make it free, it means everybody is going to eat 3 times a day for free, 70%. The other 30% you fed once, hot lunch, every day. How are you going to do it? Most development partners were running away from that proposal, saying, no, you can't do it. You're a developing country. How can you do this? Then we have limited facilities also as a major barrier. This is why America came to the rescue when we look at the facilities and we said is limited. America did not come to rescue with money, but what I had taught in the school system I taught in LA at the time was a year-round school, where you were able to increase enrollment without immediately adding more buildings. You divide the school into three, 2 cohorts are there at a time, whilst the other one was on vacation. We took that idea, which I had worked in for 10 years in California, to Ghana, and therefore we're able to remove the infrastructure barrier that was going to prevent us from implementing free secondary education. With that done, then with the cost removal, parents were now free to send their children to secondary schools. Consequently, with the innovation from California, the year-round schools, and with the cost barrier removed, we've grown enrollment from 800,000 to 1.4 million in our high schools in Ghana. Then, with that access barrier removed, we began to look at the numbers and saw for the first time that we had gender parity in secondary education, very rare in sub-Saharan African countries. Cost barrier was really compelling parents to look at, do I send a boy to school or do I send a girl? And the answer always was, let the boy go. Let the girl stay at home after junior high. So before free secondary education was introduced, 100 boys in high school, then we have 68 girls in high school. But today, for every 100 boys, you have 106 girls in high school in Ghana. The equity barrier is broken. Then we have to take a look at how do we also ensure that we improve the quality of teaching and learning. We started with how we train teachers. It used to be that teachers were only required to have a diploma, which was just 3 years of education, 2 years in the classroom, 1 year in the, for practicum, and you were ready to teach. We changed that. Now you require a bachelor's degree to teach from kindergarten all the way to high school. Major investment, but the government felt it was necessary to do that, and we've done that. Then we look at teacher credentialing, which was never the case in Ghana. Now it is the norm. Teachers are licensed before they teach in the classroom. So we're not just looking at tinkering on the edges in terms of reforming something, but total transformation. Then we've moved full steam ahead in terms of STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Then again, I was able to borrow from my experience in America in terms of magnet schools and academies, and now we have high schools in Ghana where we are doing aviation and aerospace programs. There's a girls' high school that have developed a drone, and now they are flying the drones. This is not rote memorization anymore. The very foundation of education system is changing. And you go and you see students doing robotics, artificial intelligence. We have 3D printers in high schools. And the last time, friends of mine in the U.S. saw some of the, this is, I do a few clips. I know my time is, yeah, so you have that. There's a group of girls in a girls' school that decided that they would build a drone. They met, they designed it, and not just like a prototype, but you can see the drone flying. And they fly for about 45 minutes, came back to land. And I showed this in UNESCO about a year ago, and they clapped for Ghana. What we are saying is this: we can change the education system, not for its own sake, but we need to build a critical mass of Ghanaians, and that's the drone. Critical mass with critical minds to change our country. So we are not just looking at how do you introduce a new curriculum, new coursework, but we are looking at the 4 C's of critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and effective communication, which we want to ensure that is really the cross-cutting for everything that we do. So what we are saying is this: in Ghana, we are seriously looking at transformation. Education, technology, every high school student is now getting a tablet, every one of them. And it's saving us about $200 million in terms of printing textbooks. MasterCard Foundation, which operates very well in Africa. And I'm so happy when I'm holding a MasterCard. Because they set aside a lot of money into a MasterCard Foundation, and that foundation is making serious investment in education in Africa. They donated money for subject area experts to write e-books. And these are not PDF version of the books. E-books have hyperlinks. If you are reading it, you can click on a link and it takes you to a video where you can understand the concept better. So beginning the next academic year, every Ghanaian high school student will have a tablet with the e-books loaded on it, linked with a learning management system, which enable them to do their homework, classwork activities all online, and then infused with a very robust assessment system, which has artificial intelligence infused in there, which enable assessment to be done. And it's very exciting. So in fact, what we are doing is literally doing what the Brookings Institution calls leapfrogging inequality. Because if we are to take the linear approach of following how America did it, we are not going to be able to catch up. But we have a rare opportunity to look at how do we leapfrog inequality, how do we do things differently, how do we use year-round approach as a great innovation, which here you may take for granted, but to us it was the greatest innovation in terms of getting more students to go to school. And so you see the learning environment is changing. So in Africa, you have the double burden, and especially in Ghana, of making sure your education is fit for purpose. And then it fits for what purpose? The purpose of transforming your society, moving yourself from lower middle income to upper middle income, a Herculean task. I know Prof. Sachs has been talking about how do we do that. And in Ghana, we are taking a cue. We want to make sure that we are not creating a society where children do rote memorization in school, but a place where children are critical thinkers. TVET is an area that we are also making a major movement in terms of equipping our schools. Recently, somebody asked me in a radio interview, so it seems you're getting everything. Why is it that in Ghana, you've been able to get most of these things in your schools? It takes a sense of urgency. It takes a determined president. I'm so fortunate. I have a president who wants to change his country through education. So I literally get most of the things that I want. So I'm very lucky to be the education minister in Ghana. Even post-COVID, some great things have been done. I know my time is a bit gone. I just want you to know that transforming education in Ghana is a means to an end where our country will really see development. In the next few years, we're going to see a different country. But I also want to tell you one thing. I left here for Ghana, and one thing I took with me was that idea, which some of you take for granted, that everything is possible. So I took that away to Ghana, and I believe that everything is possible, even in Africa, where there are limited resources. I'm grateful for the invitation.
Minister.
This is Daisuke Kimura. I'm from Japan, where the people lower self-esteem and the lower resilience. I just wanted to ask a very quick question, but everybody mentioned education is very important, we agree, and investment on like a transformative education, everybody agrees, but it's not really happening. So what would be the more relevant and convincing strategies to make it possible to transform, to grow the leader like Ilya? Yes. This is the quick question.
Okay, so the budgetary one. I think you were jumping up. Do you want to get that? That's the easy one.
Oh, okay. I think the basic education and investment. Now, the big movement towards what is called foundational learning, and so much resources are being poured into that area. And as if when you do foundational learning, you don't look at other issues, which is more secondary and tertiary. But in the development community, that's what we see all the time. You meet a foundation and they say, no, we don't do high school. We only focus on basic, or we only focus on the primary school level. And so the challenge that you have is to make sure that in your national budget regime, you have a balance. So it shouldn't be a situation where for me to improve my basic schools, I have to cut from higher ed. But there has to be a balance, because what we realized in Ghana is this: there was so much investment into basic schools and basic education, and then we realized that some parents were not even too much interested, because in their mind it was to a dead end. If you are investing in primary school for me, but my child cannot go to secondary, I don't have a motivation for even sending him to school or her to school, because after the primary school, they can't go anywhere. So if you don't maintain a balance and you think, oh, primary education investment is so important, in developing countries, when you go there, focus on primary education. Then you do all the primary, and then parents are not even interested because they know that after primary they have nothing. So I think the balance is so critical, because investment in higher education, secondary education, can serve as a motivator for parents to invest their effort in primary education. So I think the balance is important. And then you talk about, issues about requiring resources and teachers. And in the case of Ghana, we happen to have oversupply of teachers. So we don't have a problem at all. If you want to recruit 10,000 teachers, 100,000 will apply. In fact, some countries are now recruiting from Ghana, especially UK. So we don't have teacher shortage. So when we started the free secondary education, we just hired more teachers to complement the staff that we had. And so getting more teachers to teach in the sciences, there's no shortage in Ghana, so we don't have that. But the question also becomes funding. But I'll tell you this, there's a raging battle in Ghana. People are saying that, why should secondary be free? We are investing so much in it. And other people are saying, we better do it now. And you see that for a politician, I mean, I do a policy, I'm a techno-politician. I do more technocrat issues. But I think that if a politician wants to spend in an area like education, don't ask him to stop. And that's what the president of Ghana is saying. When people say, why are you spending all this? And you have people, news media people, accusing him of spending a fortune on education. And then his answer is, if I had not spent this money the last 7 years, you think it would be sitting somewhere? So he took our oil resources and spent it on secondary education, because he thinks that is the best investment. That instead of keeping the money and not knowing how to guarantee where the money goes, to invest it in education. So I think a sense of urgency sometimes allows some funding resources to be made available for education. So I will not worry about funding first. If there's a greater sense of urgency, we'll find the money. And I think there was something about, the one important thing is, in terms of culture and values, one area that I've seen that we haven't leveraged on very well is what in education we call the hidden curriculum. Because you will not be able to teach every single thing in your education system. But you can use the hidden curriculum to do more than the explicit curriculum. What are the values in the school? These children are sitting at our feet, beginning from kindergarten to high school. What books did we select for them to read for English literature? The stories in the books may mold their minds to become the kind of people that we want them to be, without necessarily teaching a course in values and teaching a course in culture. So I think we need to really, really look at the hidden curriculum and look at how you get to that destination. And it's easier for somebody like me with education background, when we're doing a curriculum review, I made sure climate change issues, there are units in the curriculum. If you assess the Ghanaian curriculum, you're going to see that issues of the environment is there, all the things that people talk about and say, why are we not doing this? We have a rare opportunity. And I think I was at the right place at the right time, that we could infuse such things into our curriculum.
And there's a very good course, The Ages of Globalization, that would be good for that hidden curriculum.
I'd like to ask Dr. Osei, I was going to ask a different question about the budget. What would you do if you had twice the budget, given your real situation right now? Because that's what we'd like to get for you. And second, could you just explain a little bit more about how come the teachers were available already? Because this is a general question across Africa right now for scaling up. Is that true in most places? Was that specific to Ghana? How would you see that?
Yeah, if I have twice the budget, it will be a great day for Ghana. Yeah, because I can shift the education from humanities to the STEM-related fields and actually do STEAM to have a holistic kind of education. And also, I believe that we cannot educate 21st century children in 19th century buildings and expect 21st century outcomes. I mean, you can have schools under trees and buildings are falling apart and you are telling yourself, I can still make them the best in the world. It's not going to happen. So I was fortunate. When I became the Minister for Education, by the way, I was a deputy before that, but I became minister, I went to the World Bank. They had already given us some funds to transform education in Ghana, and I told them, I need part of the money to be dedicated to school buildings. And now you're going to see some beautiful school buildings that we've done. And it has even given us a rare opportunity to cut down the cost of education. Because what is happening is that in villages and towns, you may have 7 junior high schools. And each one of them had their own mathematics teacher, their own English teacher. Now, when I go to a town, a mid-sized town, I put one huge facility that takes 1,200 students. I cut down the number of teachers needed by 40%. Because the teacher-student ratio in the junior high schools in Ghana is 1:12. Every school has a math teacher. Therefore, a school with 50 students have 13 teachers. So I'm using the infrastructure overhaul to drive a major reorganization of our junior high school system. Put it at a place where in a village with a town with 841 students, a mid-sized town, 841 students, they have 84 teachers. Because the Methodist school has its own math teacher, the Anglican school has their own mathematics teacher. Therefore, in most of the schools, teachers go to school and they don't have enough students to teach. In junior high schools, teach on Monday, you wait till Wednesday. You didn't part-time work for full-time pay because of how you have developed your infrastructure. So we moved the buildings, and these are some of them. We are moving the buildings into 21st century, equip junior high schools with biology, chemistry, physics labs, and at the same time reduce the number of teachers in such a way that I reduce the cost. In fact, the mathematics shows that in 15 years, the reduction in the teacher force can help me pay for the building. Wow. So the building is giving us quality education, but I'm rationalizing deployment of teachers in such a way that I'm saving on 40% in any town where I built this. So it's a win-win all around. But it takes reorganization, rethinking, then to be able to do what people thought was impossible, reducing cost of education per child. One of the things that Ghana, we preparing to go to PISA, but I also realized that we have to look at our local assessment regime. Invariably, we think that in education, we have what we call CIA, curriculum, instruction, and assessment. So we do that so well. But what we fail to understand is that assessment comes first. The outcome that we want, the product the student have to create. You are looking at how to solve certain mathematical equations. Then you work your way backwards to look at, is the curriculum covering that, and how am I going to teach it? About 6 months ago, I had a meeting with the West Africa Examination Council. They are the one who examine all students in Anglophone West Africa. And people see them as an international organization. But I called them to my office and I said, we have a new curriculum at the junior high school level. Give me a table of specification as to the level of difficulty of the questions that are going to come on this exam. So I popped up on my screen in my office the new Bloom's taxonomy. And I took them through it. The level 1, which is remembering, on a particular subject, 20 of the questions out of 40 were on remembering. Understanding had 10 questions. So that gives you, between understanding and remembering, you have 30 questions out of 40. And application was 10. Nothing on the exams was coming from level 4, 5, and 6. So what did that mean? What it meant, it would have meant for the country was that the following year, the teachers were not going to use critical thinking. They will not have to design lesson plans at 4, 5, and 6, because the exams is just level 1, 2, and 3. So I told them, you go back. And I said, this is a case where the tail is wagging the dog. We have created a national curriculum that says we will have critical thinkers. And as I've even gone to United Nations to talk about, we can't memorize our way out of poverty, but we can critically think. And this has gone viral. Then in my own country, there's nothing critical thinking about exams. So they took it back, and they came back 2 weeks thereafter. Now I was so happy, because 40% of the questions were from level 4, 5, and 6, assuring me that nobody was going to get an A if they could not think. But they were shocked that the education minister said the question should be difficult. But I also felt the investment we are making in education is to produce critical thinkers. And if our system is not producing them, our education is worthless. So now I'm so happy. And to validate that, I went to Nigeria and I met the Ghana's High Commissioner to Nigeria, who had lived in India. And the wife is a teacher in Ghana. So he said, Ghana, what happened this year? Your exams has changed. I said, what's going on? He said, my wife called me and told me that the Ghana's exam is just like that of India this year. So I was so happy. I got a validation. So for us to do well on PISA, you have to look at your national assessment. See, so if you go to PISA and don't do well, you are not PISA-like. So in our national standardized test, we brought psychometrists from Australia. They look at the PISA exams, and they incorporated a number of PISA-like questions to make it PISA-like. So if they do on the national exams, it tells me we can go to PISA and we'll be able to do well. We want to conquer the world, but we are starting.